What is up, guys? And I am back with the second SEC Power Rankings of the season. I like to do these after a month instead of week by week. So, this is the end of the second month of the season. We're going into the last third of the season. Um, if you did not catch my first SEC Power Rankings, you can go back and look at that. It is in the VOD on YouTube. I like to do my power rankings based off of wins versus Power 5 and non Power 5 teams, losses against Power 5 and non Power 5 teams, um, home road and neutral site records, as well as top 25 wins and your SEC records. So we'll start off. Obvious number one in the SEC is Georgia. They stayed the same for my last SEC power rankings. They are undefeated on the year in the SEC and overall, and they will stay there until they get beat. If they get beat, I have Georgia going undefeated, winning it all this year. Number two is Alabama. They are undefeated in the SEC this year with two top 25 wins. Their only loss on the season coming at home to Texas. Number three is Ole Miss. Some people might not have Ole Miss as high as I do, but Ole Miss, they have five Power 5 wins this year. They're 5-0 at home, 2-1 on the road. That loss being to Alabama. They have two top 25 wins this year as well. Also beating LSU. Ole Miss is 4-1 in the conference. So that is why I have Ole Miss ahead of LSU, because LSU is number 4. They have 4 Power 5 wins on the year. They also have 2 losses against Power 5 teams. One of those being to Ole Miss, the other to Florida State. And LSU, that loss to Florida State was a neutral site game. They are 4-1 in the conference right now with one win against a top 25 team, and they control their own destiny. So they do have Alabama this week. That is probably the game to help determine who is going to win the West this year. That's not going to say who wins the West, but it is going to help determine it for this season. Number 5, I have Missouri, and Missouri, they're about the same spot that I had them back earlier. LSU did make a jump. I believe I made a mistake on the first one because LSU just had not impressed me at that point, and they had 2 losses. So did I have them at the right spot at the time? Maybe. Looking back at it now, probably not. Missouri stayed about the same. I had them in Kentucky at number 4 and 5 earlier in the year. And I know what you're going to say about the Kentucky thing. I will get to them and explain my reasoning behind it. But Missouri, they are 7-1 on the year this year. Their one loss was at home to LSU. That was a top 25 opponent. They do have 2 top 25 wins. They are 3-1 in the SEC. They have the toughest part of their schedule coming up, though. They still have Georgia this week. They have Tennessee the following week. They've got some tough games ahead, so we'll see where they end up down the road. But they have far exceeded my expectations for this season as it sits right now. Number 6, I have Tennessee. Tennessee is still sitting in a good spot in the SEC East. Their 2 losses are to Florida, which does look bad, but Florida is also not as bad this year as everyone predicted. And then the other one was to Alabama. Both of those games were on the road. They are undefeated at home, 3-2 in the SEC this year. Also 1-0 in neutral site games. So Tennessee moved up 1 spot after my last power rankings. Number 7 is Florida. They have moved up 2 spots since my last rating. They do have 3 losses on the year. 2 of them are on the road. One of them is a neutral site game. That neutral site game being against Georgia this past week. They're still 3-2 in the conference, as one of their losses was to Utah, first game of the year. They have come a long way since that Utah game. They do have a very tough stretch down the road As it is, though, this week Florida plays against Arkansas. Then the following week you got LSU. Then you have Missouri, which is not going to be a pushover game, especially being in Columbia, Missouri. And then you have Florida State to round out the end of the season. So we'll see where Florida is. You could go. I think the best Florida can go to end this year is 2-2. They could very well go 0-4. They could surprise me completely and go 4-0. I don't see that happening. I believe that 0-4 is more likely than 4-0. But I think Florida gets at least one win out of those last 4 games. But I think that 2-2 is possible. Number 8 on the power rankings, I do still have Texas A&M at number 8. They did drop 2 spots from the last one. I had them at number 6 in the last one. 3 losses on the year, all to good opponents. I believe all of them were top 25 losses as well, if I'm thinking about it correctly. I think Miami was in the top 25, or maybe just outside of it when they beat Texas A&M. That was a road loss. You did lose at home to Alabama, but that's Alabama. So that's a loss that is not a bad loss for Texas A&M. And then you lost on the road to Tennessee. So still 3-2 in the conference this year. Number 9, I have Kentucky, and they have dropped 5 spots from the last power rankings. Now, I said this in my first power rankings. I did it based off of what we had seen from Kentucky so far, and they had played some lower level competition at the time that I did the power rankings, and they were 5-0, 2-0 in the conference going into the Georgia game, and I had said that we were going to see what Kentucky was actually made of in that game. And Kentucky, after that first power rankings that I did, had also just drummed Florida. Kentucky was the fraudulent team out of them and Missouri, and that is why they have dropped this far, because since that time they have gone 0-3. They had a bye week in the month of October. Their losses to Georgia, Missouri, and Tennessee. They are 4-2 or 4-2 at home, because 2 of those losses were at home, and you've got to defend your home field. The other loss was on the road. They're 2-3 in the SEC right now. Number 10, Auburn has moved up 1 spot from the last one. They did get their first SEC win against Mississippi State the other day. They've got a chance to win 2 in a row as they play against Vanderbilt this weekend. Then they have a chance to win a 3rd one in a row the week after. You go on the road to Arkansas. That is a winnable game against the Arkansas team that is reeling at the moment. You played New Mexico State before the Iron Bowl. Auburn right now is sitting at 4-4 on the season. You got a legitimate chance of finishing 7-5. I think the absolute worst is 6-6 by the end of the year. You could go 3-1 in the month of November to end the season. And, there are strange things that happen in the Auburn Bowl, or in the Iron Bowl as well. I am not sitting here saying that Auburn is going to beat Alabama, but we have seen stranger things happen. I think that 2-2 is more likely than 4-0 in a month of November, because you can lose to Arkansas. I don't see a loss to Vanderbilt. I think Auburn takes care of Vanderbilt this weekend, and then you're going to beat New Mexico State in week 12. So a good year for Hugh Freeze starting off. He's sitting right where he needs to be right now going forward in this season. Number 11 on the list is Mississippi State, and they have also moved up a spot. Mississippi State has exceeded my expectations for the season. I predicted them going 4-8, I believe, but their only wins were against um, out of conference foes, and they have a conference win on the season right now after beating Arkansas. And going forward, Mississippi State this week has Kentucky. It can be a win. I think Kentucky is a little bit better than Mississippi State, but Kentucky is also reeling. Mississippi State then has Texas A&M, more than likely a loss. You play Southern Miss. That should be a win for Mississippi State before the Egg Bowl. And once again, one of those games where anything can happen in the Egg Bowl, but I do think that Ole Miss is just a more talented team this year. So Mississippi State could end up with a 6-6 record this year, which I believe is success under Zach Arnett in year one. I didn't have a lot of expectations going into the season this year for Mississippi State. They're 3-2 at home this year. Auburn is also 3-2 at home, and they are both 1-2 on the road. So two losses at home and on the road, both 1-4 in the conference. Once again, these two teams could be swapped, but because Auburn has the head-to-head, that's why I put them ahead. Number 12 is South Carolina. They have dropped 2 spots, and South Carolina is they're between a rock and a hard place, but they have a promising conclusion to the season this year. This week playing against Jacksonville State, not a pushover team. Jacksonville State, one of the better group of 5 teams in the nation. Then South Carolina plays Vanderbilt. That should be a win. So you're looking at 2-0 in the month of November right now, more than likely. Then you've got Kentucky. That game is at home. I do like the matchup between Kentucky and South Carolina there for South Carolina. I think that can be a win. And then you end up the season with Clemson. And Clemson is reeling as well. So South Carolina, you could turn this season around and make it look better than it really is. And you could possibly go 4-0 in the month of November. That is, once again, a tall task. But I think that it could happen. I think that 3-1 is more likely, and it's possible it's even 2-2. So you would end up anywhere from 4-8 to 6-6 this year. South Carolina is 2-1 at home, 0-4 on the road, 0-1 in neutral site games. They're 1-5 in the conference right now, so it hasn't been the year that South Carolina was looking for. At number 13, I have Arkansas. And this is a team that really did not have the season it was looking for. Arkansas had very high expectations this year, and it has not come to fruition. They're 2-2 at home, 0-3 on the road, 0-1 in neutral site games, 0-5 in the conference right now. The only reason that they are not last is because all 6 of their losses this year came to Power 5 opponents, and that's about all I can say about that, because number 14 on the list is Vanderbilt, who doesn't have a Power 5 win and has 7 losses on the year, one of those being to a group of 5 school in UNLV. That loss doesn't look as bad as it originally did, because UNLV is a very good group of 5 team this year, but it's still a group of 5 loss that they should have won. They're sitting at 0-5 in the conference right now, and likely will not win another game this year or just one more going forward. Vandy has Auburn. They have South Carolina. Then they have a bye week in week 12. They do get 2 bye weeks this year because they played in week 0, and then you travel to Tennessee for the last game of the year. So, yeah, more than likely, Vandy will end up the season sitting at 2-10. There is some promise for Vandy in the coming years. I like their backup quarterback that played a little bit the other day against Ole Miss. I think that he has a promising future. with that young talent around him. Just needs some help on the offensive and defensive lines. So I'll run through my power rankings again one more time. Again, we have Georgia sitting at number 1, Alabama number 2. You have Ole Miss number 3, LSU number 4, Missouri number 5, Tennessee sitting at number 6, Florida number 7, Texas A&M number 8, Kentucky number 9, Auburn number 10, Mississippi State number 11, South Carolina number 12, Arkansas 13, and Vanderbilt rounding it out at number 14. Once again, I will have another SEC power rankings at the end of the season before the conference championship game. That one should be pretty straightforward. Could be a little bit of deviation from the actual SEC standings. We'll see whenever we get there. But this is SEC power rankings after month 2. Leave a comment on what you think of this SEC power rankings. Sunday, Skylar and I will be back on getting ready for the Week 10 SEC recap and then the Week 11 predictions. Thank you, guys.